All right, everybody, what's going on? And welcome to today's edition of Swag Talk, the show we cover the swag inside and out. Of course, I'm your tour guide around the swag, see what's coming at you. And we are gonna recap week 10, man. We are done with week 10. We have week 11, 12, 13, and 14 left in the regular season and the swag championship game and the celebration bowl. So not a lot of football left, man. We're coming into the final month. We're in the final month of the regular season. We one weekend into the final month of the regular season. So the races are heating up. There's still some intrigue on both sides. Nothing's fully cemented yet, but teams are starting to position themselves in good positions. And it's gonna be a good close to the season. We still got some big games to determine some things on both sides. So keep it locked, and we're gonna see because the swag is topsy turvy. It can always look one way one week, and then the next week it can look the next. Um, so we're gonna break down all the games that took place this week. There were 6 games on the schedule, and then at the end of the show we'll go over the schedule for week 11, and we'll roll out from there. So first off, we do have our new link for the week 11 pick'em. The link will be in the description. It's also a pinned tweet on my Twitter account, which is Swag Talk 76. Also, it is on my Instagram and my Facebook, which are Swag Talk. Um, got a really good turnout of people, man. We got a nice tight race going on. Coming into week 11, Jamie G leads with 56 points. Lawrence is behind him with 53, and Kai Law has 52. So there's a tight race at the top, and we have a good group of people that's playing. So if you want to get in, you can still pick just to pick. But at the end of the celebration bowl, the person with the most points is gonna win a championship belt. We're gonna personalize it and send it to you. So I know season almost over, but if you want to kind of just play, just to get in and play, come on in, the more the merrier. And we having a good time with all of this. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment your thoughts on week 10, man. It's been a fun time, and this season it's been up and down. It's been entertaining, for good and bad. And our week 11 recap will be coming at you on Wednesday. Thursday is Swag Smoke as usual, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. And Sunday is our week 11 recap. We haven't decided yet, but we may go live on Saturday after the games. We've been doing that quite often now. Last night's show was was crazy. So if you want to check it out, you can always go back and check it out. We've been doing that quite often in regular season, going live at the games. Sometimes it's good, when your team wins. Sometimes it's not so good when your team lose, but it's always fun to get on there and kind of hash things out and just have a good time. So definitely check out those lives from the post games. They've been a lot of fun, so definitely check that out. And we appreciate y'all for coming on with us at 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday after all these games. So, we couldn't do any of that without y'all, and we couldn't do any of this at all without y'all. So thank y'all for being an active part of the community. So let's go ahead and jump into the action. We're going to start off with the first game that we previewed, which is Mississippi Valley and Prairie View. Man, this was an entertaining game, honestly. Although I must say, if you watch the game, obviously, at least from what I can see from watching the replay, you missed we missed the most important part of the game. But it's still, it was an entertaining game. Prairie View got all they can handle from Valley. It took 2 4-quarter touchdowns from PV to actually take the lead again and hold off a Valley rally. Nice round. But Prairie View, they win their second straight game. They pick up their second conference win, and they're still, they have some maneuvering and gonna need some chaos, but they still are kind of sitting in the middle of the pack. So they're not out of it, but they're not really in it. But I think they just kind of making their way. Valley, I hate to say it, but I think that this season is gonna end winless for them. Unless they pull off an upset, a major upset in the next couple of weeks. I think they're not going to have a lot of opportunities to get wins. But they've been game the last couple of weeks, so maybe they're turning the corner a little bit. And still trying to figure out how to win, but maybe they're turning that corner a little, and you never know what's going to happen. But uh, after a scoreless first quarter, the Panthers got on the board first with a Arilamo Garcia Rodriguez 46-yard field goal, which came with 9 minutes left in the second quarter. The Panthers took a 3-0 lead. Valley would tie the game up at 3 um, in the third quarter because the first half ended 3-0. Valley would get the first points of the third quarter with a 51-yard Marco Jovicic field goal with 9:30 left in the third to tie the game up at 3. Valley would take the lead on a Nathan Rimbert 76-yard pass from Tajarian Williams. And I don't know if it was a blown coverage or he just ran by the guy, but he was completely open. Williams hit him in stride and he coasted into the end zone. 10-3 was the score at that point. That was a one-play drive. After that, Prairie View would get back on the board and tie the game up at 10 with 7:30 left in the game when Lamonte McDowell would get a 2-yard touchdown run. At the extra point was good. That capped the 8-play 73-yard drive. They took 2:42 off the clock. Score tied at 10. 2:57 left in the game. McDowell will get his second touchdown, this time from 2 yards out as well. Extra point good. That capped the 3-play 39-yard drive. It took 1:10 off the clock. Panthers at 17-10. With 1:47 left in the game, Cameron Nelson would catch a 24-yard pass from Williams. Make the score 17-16. Valley would go for 2 and get called for holding. They would go for 2, and I think that from the angle, I believe they got in, but they were flagged for holding, and so they tried it again and didn't get it, and so they kicked the onside kick. They looked like they got it, but then they were called for offsides, and Purview would end up getting the ball and run the clock out from there. And Panthers would win 17-16 in a game that, like I said, Valley put up a strong fight in this game, continuing to kind of seem like they kind of getting a little bit better. But 20 first downs for Purview, 15 for Valley, 210 yards on the ground for the Panthers, 42 carries, 5 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. Valley 81 yards on the ground, 25 carries, 3.2 yards per carry, no touchdowns. 175 yards through the air for Prairie View, 16 of 26, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Valley 287 through the air, 16 of 24, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. 385 yards of total offense for the Panthers, 68 plays, 5.7 yards per play. They had 1 fumble but didn't lose it. They had 6 penalties for 65 yards. Valley 368 yards of offense, 49 plays, 7.5 yards per play. They had 1 fumble and didn't lose it. And they had 6 penalties for 49 yards. 5 punts for Prairie View for a 33.4-yard average. 4 punts for Valley for a 49.8-yard average. Prairie View 5 of 13 on third down, 1 for 1 on fourth down, 2 of 3 in the red zone. They had 1 sack. Valley 3 of 1 in the 3 of 11 on third down. Didn't attempt the fourth down. They were 1 for 3 in the red zone, and they had 1 sack as well. Both teams missed field goals. Valley missed 3 field goals in this game, so and Prairie View missed 1. So Valley honestly had a chance to win this game if they make their field goals. But that's the kind of thing that happens, with a team that is kind of struggling to find their way. Jaden Johnson, 14 of 23 for Prairie View, 170 yards, no touchdown, 1 interception, 1 sack. Cam Peters, 2 for 3 for 5 yards. Tajarian Williams, 16 for 24 for Valley, 287 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 1 sack. McDowell led Prairie View with 21 carries for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's the game I've been waiting for from this guy. Like I said, he's a big back, and he should get those carries and use the other guys kind of as change of pace. And he was able to cross 100 yards in this game with 2 touchdowns, so a really big effort for him. Also 6.2 yards per carry, so really just a solid game for him there. Jacoby Thomas led Valley with 6 carries for 63 yards. He averaged 10.5 yards per carry, so a solid game for him. James Burns, 4 catches, 50 yards for Prairie View. Jeremiah Ratliff, 4 for 40. Rembert led Valley with 7 catches for 163 yards and a touchdown. Davis 7 for 86. Harris led Prairie View with 6 tackles along with Fred Stokes Jr. Uh, Stokes had 2 tackles for loss and 1 sack to pace the defense, and no interceptions for Prairie View Valley. Were led by Eric Campbell with 9 tackles along with Douglas Franklin. He also had 9 tackles. Dietrich Jones and Donovan Parham each had a tackle for loss apiece, and they both had a half a sack. Interception went to Pirtle. So Prairie survives. Valley's been kind of a rough spot for them this trip and the last trip, but they were able to make it out with the win. And at this point in the season, that's really all you want to do is win. So you just want to kind of keep pace and keep yourself in it in case something crazy happens. You just never know. I mean, you look at 2022. That was a season where multiple teams had a chance to win the West, and it came down to teams losing. So, I think that, they need a lot to happen. Number one, they need a lot to happen. They can't tie with Southern. So they need a lot to happen. But stranger things have happened in the West, so you don't slam the door on them, but it's pretty much closing fast. The next game we have is Gremlin and Bethune-Cookman. This is a game that I thought Gremlin had to have. Coming off of a loss to Texas Southern, they stay on the road and they drop a game to Bethune-Cookman, who has been looking a little bit better in the last couple of weeks. Bethune-Cookman pulls out this victory 24-21 as they outscored Gremlin 20. They outscored Gremlin 17-7 in the second half to win this game. Gremlin would jump out to a 14-0 first half lead. First lead, 14-0 lead in the first half behind a Keelan Elder 22-yard touchdown run and Javon Robinson 72-yard punt return for a touchdown. And that put the Tigers up 14-0 before Bethune-Cookman would get on the board when Thomas Nance would catch a 14-yard pass from Cam Ransom. After the extra point, that would make the score 14-7. That score came with only 51 seconds left in the first half. And that would be our halftime score, 14-7. Gremlin would get another touchdown, this time from Del J. Bailey from 9 yards out. With 12:04 left in the game, Gremlin sitting at 21-7, looking like they're gonna cruise on away with this win. But Bethune just kept plugging away. They got a field goal from Cade Hector from 40 yards out. They made the score 21-10. And then with 3:17 left in the third, Darnell Dees would catch a 58-yard pass from Ransom. Extra point good, 21-17. And then with no time left in the third, Dennis Palmer would get a 42-yard run for Bethune-Cookman to make the score 24-21. And that would basically be the game. If you look at what Gremlin did in their final few drives, they got the ball in first at the beginning of the fourth quarter. They went 3 and out and punted. They had a solid drive on their second drive. They drove after Bethune punt. They got the ball at the 39. They had a 14-play, 56-yard drive. They got the ball at their own 5 after a punt. They drove to the Bethune 39 and they threw an interception. That was a 14-play, 56-yard drive that put them in position to maybe take the lead or tie, but they threw an interception. They get the ball back, and they get the ball back at their own 21 after Bethune missed a field goal, and they would ultimately drive 7 plays, have 7 plays, go 5 yards, and throw an interception to wrap up the game. So nothing really, other than that one drive in the fourth quarter, nothing really threatening for them. So Bethune was able to hold them off, even though Bethune didn't have the best game offensively, but they got the win. 19 first downs for Gremlin, 16 for the Wildcats. Tigers 122 yards on the ground, 37 carries, 3.3 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. Wildcats 80 yards on the ground, 31 carries, 2.6 yards per carry, and 1 touchdown. Gremlin 206 yards through the air, 18 of 33. No touchdowns, but the 2 interceptions, both in the fourth quarter. Bethune-Cookman 235 yards through the air, 23 of 27, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. 328 yards of offense for Gremlin, 70 plays, 4.7 yards per play. They fumbled twice, but didn't lose either. They had 8 penalties for 85 yards. Bethune-Cookman, 315. Total offense, 58 plays, 5.4 yards per play, no fumbles. And they had 6 penalties for 50 yards. Gremlin had a 38.6 yard average per punt on 5 punts. And Bethune-Cookman had a 47.6 yard average on 5 punts. Gremlin finished the night 2 or 12 on third down. That's always going to hurt you. 0 for 4 on fourth down. 1 or 2 in the red zone. And they had 3 sacks as a defense. Bethune-Cookman 5 or 13 on third down. Didn't attempt the fourth down. 2 for 2 in the red zone. And they had 1 sack. Individually, Dale J. Bailey, 18 or 33, 206 yards. No touchdown, 2 interceptions, and 1 sack. Ransom, 18 for 20, 199 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks. Luke Sprague, 5 or 7 for 36 yards. He was sacked 3 times and threw an interception. Elder, 8 carries, 50 yards, and a touchdown. Bradford, 9 for 33. Talbot, 6 for 23. Palmer led Bethune-Cookman with 20 carries for 86 yards and a touchdown. Robinson led Gremlin with seven catches for 91 yards. Nick Howard, 4 for 54. Darnell Dees had 5 catches for 76 yards and a touchdown for the Wildcats. Nance, 4 for 71 and a touchdown. Gremlin was led by Andrew Jones with 11 tackles. He also had 2 tackles for loss, along with Bryce Cage to lead the defense. And Isaac Washington had a sack, and John Horton had a sack. They tied for the team lead with 1 interception went to Joel Williams. And Bethune-Cookman was led by Adrian Hall Jr. with 8 tackles. Oren Patu had 2 tackles for loss and 1 sack to lead the defense. Interception went to Thornhill and Blake. So a big win for Bethune-Cookman as they pick up their second conference win of the season. They're kind of showing signs of life. They kind of had obviously a rough go of it early, but they lost a few close games that they probably should have won. So they're kind of starting to find a little bit of a footing. But it comes a little late in the season. But if they can kind of continue to make some strides, maybe the team can slide into a 4th place finish in the division, which to me would be great for a team that started 0 for 7, I believe. So they are still kind of still plugging along. I think Coach Woody got these guys kind of playing a little bit better week by week. So we'll see how they survive the rest of the season. Gremlin, they've been on a slide. They won a couple games here and there, but they haven't really looked sharp since early in the season. So we'll see how they go as they kind of try to figure out some things throughout the season. Third game on the slate is Southern and Alabama A&M. This was this was an entertaining game. I mean, I think this was kind of a game that was a tale of a couple halves, a couple quarters, I guess you could say. Both teams, showed flashes. Both teams had deficiencies, but Southern would ultimately end up pulling out the victory at the end, 25-20. A&M looked like they were going to run away with this game. They had a good drive to start the first quarter. Had the punt, got the ball back early in the first quarter at the 50-yard line, and they drove 50 yards in 5 plays in 2 minutes and 12 seconds to get Xavier Langford 1-yard touchdown run, and they would lead 7-0 at that point. Nothing else happens in the first quarter. Bulldogs would get the ball in pretty good position and drive down to the Southern 3 and end up having to kick a field goal. So that was a good defensive stand by Southern. But Alabama A&M would get a 10-0 lead after Victor Barbosa would kick a 21-yard field goal. Southern would finally get on the board in the second quarter with 5 minutes left when Darren Morris would catch an 11-yard pass from Xavier T-Set. Extra point was no good. 10-6 was the score at that point. Southern did miss a field goal in that gap between scores. And then with 23 seconds left in the first half, Josh Griffin would kick a 35-yard field goal to cap the 11-play 62-yard drive that took 155 off the clock. 10-9 was our halftime score. Southern would Southern would basically score 10 unanswered points in the third quarter. Darren Morris would get a 36-yard pass from T-Set that capped a 7-play, 99-yard drive that took 2:54 off the clock, 16-10. And then Griffin would get a 32-yard field goal with 43 seconds left in the third, capping a 9-play, 59-yard drive that took 5:49 off the clock. 19-10 was the score in. Southern looked like they had the game under control. Alabama A&M defense had a couple big third down stops. Cortez Andrews, a couple big tackles on third downs to really stymie Southern, like really just really good tackles at the down marker. So they were able to stop Southern a couple of times, and then they were able to get on the board with 13:27 left in the game when Victor Barbosa would kick a 39-yard field goal. That capped a 6-play, 58-yard drive that took 2:07 off the clock, 19-13. And then with 3 minutes and 42 seconds left in the game, Langford would get an 8-yard run. Extra point was good. 7-play, 71-yard drive that took 3:01 off the clock. Southern would get the ball at their own 25-yard line and drive 75 yards in 9 plays, taking 2:30 off the clock. Capping that drive was a 14-yard pass from T-Set to Dupree Fuller. 2-point conversion was no good, 25-20. Alabama A&M would get the ball with one final chance, one final drive, and they would face a fourth down, and they would face like a 4th and 17 at their own 18-yard line when Xavier Langford would complete a pass to Devin Herring for 23 yards to the 41. Langford would then run the ball for 12 yards to the Southern 47, and then Langford would pick up another 5 yards to the Southern 42, and then he would complete. He would go and complete a couple of times, and then he would complete a pass to Nelson for 7 yards to the Southern 42, to the Southern 35, excuse me. And then from there, they just threw incomplete a couple of times and could not score. So pass should have been intercepted in the end zone at the end, but still Southern was able to deflect the pass and get the win, 25-20. 19 first down for Southern, 18 for the Bulldogs. 147 yards rushing for Southern, 30 carries, 4.9 yards per carry, no touchdowns. Alabama A&M 192 yards on the ground, 34 carries, 5.6 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. 294 yards through the air for Southern, 24-37. No interceptions, 3 touchdowns. 196 yards through the air for the Bulldogs. 169 yards through the air for the Bulldogs. 15-32. No touchdowns, 1 interception. 441 yards for Southern, 67 plays, 6.6 yards per play, no fumbles, 5 penalties for 50 yards. So if you're a Southern fan, you're glad to see the penalties drop way off the last couple of weeks. So hopefully that's something that they're getting under control. 361 yards for Alabama A&M, 66 plays, 5.5 yards per play. They also didn't fumble, and they had 4 penalties for 30 yards. Southern averaged 37.2 yards per punt on 6 punts. Bulldogs, 6 punts, 42.2-yard average. Southern was 7 of 17 on third down, 1 for 1 on fourth down, and 4 of 4 in the red zone. They had 1 sack. Alabama A&M was only 1 of 11 on third down, and that 1 conversion actually came on that final drive. So going into that final drive of the fourth quarter, they were 0 for 10 on third downs throughout the game, and then that really going to hurt you in games, especially games that are tight. 2 for 2 on fourth downs, and then they were 3 of 3 in the red zone, and they had no sacks. Individually, T-Set led Southern going 24-37, 294 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks. Langford, 15 of 32, 169 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, 1 sack. Kobe Dillon led Southern with 19 carries for 85 yards and no touchdowns. They averaged 4.5 yards per carry. T-Set also chipped in 57 yards on 6 carries, averaged 9.5 yards per carry. Langford led the Bulldogs with 15 carries for 93 yards and 2 touchdowns, averaged 6.2 yards per carry. Eaglin, 16 for 77 on the night. Morris led Southern with 5 catches for 96 yards. Fuller and 2 touchdowns. Fuller, four for 70 and a touchdown. Brown, 4 for 59. Herring led the Bulldogs with 4 catches for 59 yards. Also, Hamburg, 3 for 47. Herman Brister led Southern with 10 tackles along with Vince Page. He also had 10 tackles. Uh, Harry, Gibbons, Brister, Page, and Davis each had 1 tackle for loss. Gibbons had the sack. Interception went to Brister. A&M was led by Anthony Fieldings with 7 tackles along with Cortez Andrews and Demetrius Biombi. They all had 7 tackles apiece. Jamarion Ellis had 1.5 tackles for loss, no sacks, and no interceptions. This was like I said, this was a really good game for Southern after the first quarter. This game was kind of like a microcosm of what Alabama A&M is. I think their offense is very good. I think they can move the ball on almost anybody they play. And their defense was actually pretty salty in this game, but they just have those consistency issues, whether it's a costly turnover or the fact that they could not convert a third down for basically the whole game. They just, they seemed like they had things going, and then one mistake throws everything off the rails. But their defense did a good job late in the second half when it seemed like it was getting away from them to get a couple big third down stops to stop some drives that Southern may have been able to put a couple points on the board and change the outcome of this game in terms of margin. But at the end, they gave up a big drive, and A&M's offense just couldn't really get it in the end zone at the end, and then Southern got the victory. But I thought this was a great game, especially from the second quarter on for T-Set. I do think that this should end any quarterback controversy. I think you let him play out these last 3 games, and then you go from there, unless he just doesn't look good at all in any of these games. But I think he showed a lot of poise because the first quarter really was ugly for him. He was 2 for 8, 25 yards. But I thought he did a good job of fighting through it. I thought the coaches did a good job of believing in him. I thought his guys did a better job of catching the ball and, just getting themselves open. And the running game clicked, and the offensive line did a great job, even though he got pressured. There were no sacks. So I think this is probably the best game Southern's played. Maybe the Alcorn game was a little bit better, but this was a really good game, and it kept them in the race for the West Division. A&M, where do they go from here? That's tough. We don't know. I think they let go a couple games. I think they just haven't really been able to put it all together, and that's been what A&M's been since the fall of 2021. They just haven't been able to put it all together. They look good some weeks they don't, and that's just been who they are. That takes us to our fourth game on the day, which was the first of 2 homecoming games. Jackson State throttled Pine Bluff by a score of 41-3. This game was honestly out of reach pretty early. Jackson State actually trailed 3-0. Pine Bluff scored first, and Jackson State scored 41 unanswered points. So it looked like Pine Bluff may be able to give them a go. And then Jackson State offense just opened up, and the defense controlled the Golden Lions, and they got an easy homecoming win, 41-3. Trey Gliff got the Golden Lions their only points of the game with 11:56 left in the first with a 28-yard field goal. Jackson State will immediately get on the board with 10:05 left in the first when Janalen Dupree will catch a 19-yard pass from Jacoby and Morgan, 7-3. Morgan would run a 3-yard touchdown run with 2 minutes left in the first to put the Tigers up 14-3. Irv Mulligan would get a 1-yard run early in the second quarter to make the score 21-3. And then with 35 seconds left in the first half, Marvin Landy would catch a 22-yard pass from Morgan to make the score 28-3. And then Basil would kick a 36-yard field goal with no time left in the first half to make the score 31-3, which would be the halftime score. With 5:32 left in the third, Dupree would get a 35-yard pass from Morgan, 38-3. And then with 10:27 left in the game, Basil would kick a 48-yard field goal to make the score 41-3, which would be our final score. Pine Bluff never had a chance in this game. Really good effort for Jackson State to come out and take care of business early and slam the door on a team who, has been showing signs of being a pesky opponent. But JSU kind of really stymied them on defense, and the offense was able to take advantage of a Pine Bluff defense that hasn't been good all year. 18 first downs for the Golden Lions, 25 for Jackson State. 67 yards rushing for the Golden Lions, 27 carries, 2.5 yards per carry, no touchdowns. 247 on the ground for Jackson State, 48 carries, 5.1 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. Again, this team go over 150, they win. They went way over that, and they won the game in a blowout. 150 through the air for the Golden Lions, 15 of 32, no touchdowns, one interception. 187 yards for the Tigers through the air, 14 of 22, 3 touchdowns, one interception. 217 total offense for the Golden Lions, 59 plays, 3.7 yards per play. They had 2 fumbles and lost 1, 4 penalties for 50 yards, 434 yards of offense for Jackson State, 70 plays, 6.2 yards per play, no fumbles, eight, uh, eight, um, 8 penalties for 75 yards. Jackson State did not punt in this game. So even with that kind of lull in the second half, they still didn't punt. 4 punts for the Golden Lions for 34-yard average. 6 of 14 for Pine Bluff on third down. 0 for 3 on fourth down. 1 or 2 in the red zone. No sacks. Jackson State 5 of 13 on third down. 3 of 3 on fourth down. 4 or 5 in the red zone, and they had 4 sacks. Makai Higgins 15 of 32, 150 yards, no touchdown, no intercept. Well, no touchdown, 1 interception, 4 sacks. Morgan 14 of 22, 187 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, no sacks. Higgins led the Golden Lions with 13 carries for 34 yards. Mulligan 19 for 141 and 1 touchdown for Jackson State. Dawkins 3 catches, 45 yards. Jackson State held Giovanni Gibson in check. He had 6 catches for 45 yards. For a lot of guys, that's a good game. But for this guy, that is actually not a good game. They kept him pretty much in check. Dupree, 3 catches, 57 yards, 2 touchdowns for the Tigers. Landy, 3 for 55 and a touchdown. Mike Riley had 8 tackles to lead the Golden Lions. They had only 1 tackle for loss as a team, so they just could not do anything on the night. They really just could not. They just really could not make anything happen. And they finished the night with no sacks. So, and the interception was by White. Their defense just could not make anything happen. Hawkins led Jackson State with 8 tackles. He also had 2 tackles for loss and 2 sacks. So a big game for him. Interception went to Petty. And this was, this is what you want from a homecoming game, man. You come out, you knock out this team, and you go about your business, and you continue your season. Pine Bluff, I thought this was a step back for them. This was probably the most uncompetitive game all season besides the Arkansas game. Because even the other games that they got blowed out, they were in those games early before the other team kind of pulled away. JSU took that early field goal that Pine Bluff kicked and ran them over. I think if you Pine Bluff, you got to kind of look a little bit sideways at yourself because I think you really took a step back in this game. I think a couple of weeks ago you were the talk of the town with the win over Prairie View, and now you kind of have fallen back again and just haven't been able to right the ship. So, I think I do. They did win against Valley last week, but that was a game that was probably closer than it should have been. But when you take that step up in conference competition, you kind of want to put on a better effort than what they did, and they just could not get it done. That takes us to our 5th game of the day, our final homecoming game, which was FAMU blowing out Texas Southern by a score of 52-28. This was a game that the Rattlers basically dominated. This was probably the best game they played all season, even though they gave up, a lot of points in the second half. The game was basically out of reach, by the time TSU started scoring. Just a really good defensive effort for FAMU. This is their second straight defensive effort that was really good. The offense got it done. Special teams got it done. This is probably, like I said, this was probably the most complete game that they played all season. TSU scored a lot of points in the second half, but still didn't get a lot done in this game. And this was a FAMU homecoming victory that they could um, really relish. Quan Lee caught a 1 yard pass from Richardson to open up the scoring with 7:02 left in the first quarter. Rattlers went up 7-0. 13:48 left in the second quarter. Kobe Gross would catch a 6 yard pass from Richardson that made the score 14-0 after the extra point. 6:11 left in the second quarter. Jeremiah Pruitt caught a 17-yard pass from Daniel Richardson to go up 21-0 after the extra point. That would be our halftime score. FAMU would come out and get a 10-yard pass from Richardson to Dean with 13:32 left in the second half. Left in the third quarter. FAMU goes up 28-0. Donald McKinney would get a 28-yard pass from Jace Wilson. That was a 4-play, 25-yard drive. That came after a really good kickoff return by Texas Southern, put them in great field position. That score came with 8 minutes left in the third. Immediately, Robert Lockhart gets a 91-yard kickoff return for FAMU to make the score 35-14. Sean Xavier Lewis will run that kickoff back afterwards for 90 yards to make the score 35 to 35-21. McKinney would catch in between earlier in the third quarter. McKinney would catch a 5-yard pass from Wilson to make the score 28-7. So they had a little flurry in the second half. And then Lewis got that kickoff return, made the score 35-21. Jalen Ward will catch a 22-yard pass from Richardson in the third quarter to make the score 42-21. Thad Franklin would get a 1-yard touchdown run to go up 49-21, which would be FAMU's first rushing touchdown of the season. It took 8 games to get there, but they finally got them a rushing touchdown. They went up 49-21 at that point. Quinn would get a 8-yard touchdown run for the Tigers to make score 49-28, and then Gillis would get a field goal with 46 seconds left for 39 yards out to put the Rattlers up 52-28, which would be the final score. Only 7 first downs for Texas Southern, 25 for FAMU, 111 yards on the ground for the Tigers, 34 carries, 3.3 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. FAMU, 236 yards on the ground, really, really good running night for them. 36 carries, 6.6 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. Passing yards, Texas Southern only 53, 5 of 13, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. FAMU 295 through the air, 27 of 36, 5 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. 164 yards of offense for the Tigers, 47 plays, 3.5 yards per play. No fumbles. They had 9 penalties for 45 yards. FAMU 531 total offense, 72 plays, 7.4 yards per play. No fumble. They had 8 penalties for 75 yards. FAMU punted twice for a 38.5-yard average. Seven punts for TSU for 33.1-yard average. Tigers 1 of 11 on third down, 1 or 2 on fourth down. They were 3 for 3 in the red zone, and they had 1 sack. FAMU 5 of 12 on third down, 3 of 3 on fourth down, 6 of 6 in the red zone, and they finished the night with 4 sacks. Individually, Jace Wilson 5 of 13 for 53 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 4 sacks. Daniel Richardson 25 of 33, 267 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 1 sack. Junior Maritovic 2 for 3 for 28 yards. Quinn led the Tigers with 15 carries for 71 yards. Somerset 6 carries for 75 yards. For the Rattlers, Dean 9 for 62. Franklin 10 for 57 and a touchdown. McKinney had 2 catches for 33 yards to lead the Tigers and 2 touchdowns. Pruitt 6 for 60 and a touchdown. Ward 4 for 60 and a touchdown. Darrensburg led the Tigers with 13 tackles. Cox had 2 tackles for loss. He also had a sack. Interceptions went to Kately and Williams. FAMU was led by Jamil Sanders with 7 tackles. He also had 3 tackles for loss. Sacks went to Gardner, Jenkins, Pender, and Ash. And the interception went to Cumberbatch. Definitely want to shout out Sean Xavier Lewis. from Texas. He had 230 yards on 6 kick returns. 90 yards was his long and a touchdown. Um, Also, Robert Lockhart from FAMU, three returns, 130 yards, and a touchdown as well for 91 yards. So it was a really good game for return guys. I mean, of course, they were active in a game like this, but really good game now for FAMU in all phases of the game. Like I said, defense dominated, offense was able to run the ball extremely well, pass the ball well. Couple turnovers in there, but nothing that hurt them, and they were able to pick up a win and extend their winning streak at home. So continue to be tough to beat at home, and TSU still, I think, coming off of a, I didn't really give them a great chance coming into this game, but coming off of a victory last week, I think they just did not compete in this game. Um, And so, where do they go from here? They have a lot of questions to answer offensively. Um, couldn't get anything going, and that's got to be an issue for them. And we'll see if they can solve that issue. That takes us to our final game of the day. This was a game that was the opposite of the last game. This was pretty much a defensive game. Actually ended up with a lot more points than I thought would be when I was watching the second half of this game, but Bama State picks up a 21-17 win over Alcorn, keeping themselves in the race for the East Division. They still have a matchup with Jackson State coming in a couple of weeks. Alcorn dropped a game that put them essentially a couple games back because they would need Southern to lose twice, and they would need to win out to win the division. So they kind of put themselves in a tougher spot with that loss. And this was a low-scoring first half. Bama State first touchdown came on a pick six by Lakeem Lewis from 90 yards out. That put the Hornets up 7-0. That came with 7:24 left in the first half. This game was 0-0 so long. I thought the score tracker was broken. Every time I look, it still was 0-0, and for some reason, it just didn't seem like anything was happening. I thought it was broken until that touchdown happened. Truck Griffin would get the Braves on the board with a 1-yard run, and that came with 3 seconds left in the first half. That tied the score up at 7 after the extra point. That was a 14-play, 90-yard drive that took 3:17 off the clock for the Braves. 7-7 was our halftime score. Kiani would get the Braves back on the board and give them the lead with 5:29 left in the third on a 23-yard field goal. That kept the 11-play, 77-yard drive that took 5:15 off the clock. Eric Horn would catch a 43-yard pass from Kareem Key, and that would cap a 3-play, 55-yard drive that took 123 off the clock. Hornets led 14-10 after the extra point. That came with 122 left in the third. Anthony Williams would get a 17-yard run for Alcorn. That capped a short drive, only 2 plays, 22 yards. That came off of a block punt that put them in great field position. And they cashed it in and took the lead 17-14. And then with 7:53 left in the game, Marcus Harris would get a 19-yard run. And extra point was good. That capped a 7-play, 73-yard drive that took 3:54 off the clock, 21-17. And this game would actually get, it didn't necessarily get, Bama State couldn't really put it away. They tried to run the clock out, ended up having to punt the ball away. Alcorn had one final drive. Looked like wasn't much going to happen. And then Alcorn got down to the 50-yard line basically, and the Hail Mary pass was caught at the 3-yard line of Bama State, and the guy was tackled. So could have won the game, if the ball would have took another bounce, or maybe he could have broke a tackle or two. So they came up 3 yards short of winning this game, and that kind of put them behind, put them in a loss situation. But that was a kind of a play that they needed, especially because their offense was kind of up and down, the whole game for the most part, other than a couple good good scores. But they were able to kind of survive, and Bama State was able to survive this game. Trey Lawrence had up and down game in relief of Xavier Vaughn after he went out due to injury. Um, at some point in the third in the second half. So that was I think it was around the later portion of the third quarter when Vaughn went out the game. And they were able to kind of keep themselves in this game. I think Alcorn defensively played pretty well. Of course, Bama State defense played as well as they normally do. But 22 first downs for Alcorn, 12 for Bama State. 181 on the ground for the Braves against that Bama State defense. That's a great night. 45 carries, 4 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, 97 yards for Bama State. This is offense that has been tearing it up on the ground, but Alcorn defense played really well here, held them to 97 yards on 32 carries, 3 yards per carry, and 1 touchdown. 251 passing for Alcorn, 27 of 41, no touchdown, 2 interceptions, 145 for Bama State through the air, 14 of 20, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. 432 yards of offense against that Bama State defense on 86 plays. This was a really good game for Alcorn. 27 of 41, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Bama State 145, 14 of 20. Like I said, they had 1 touchdown, no interceptions. 432 yards, 86 plays, 5 yards per play. No, 2 fumbles, didn't lose either. 9 penalties for 78 yards. Bama State 242. Total offense 52 plays, 4.7 yards per play. They fumbled 3 times and lost 1, and they had 4 penalties for 25 yards. Both teams averaged around 37 yards per punt. Alcorn had 7 punts. Bama State was 14 of 22, 164 yards, no touchdown, 1 interception. He was sacked 4 times. Vaughn 13 of 18, 87 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. He was sacked twice. Key 14 of 20, 145 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception. He was sacked twice. Williams led Alcorn with 7 carries for 66 yards and a touchdown. Jabari Kunkindle, I butchered that name. 6 carries, 56 yards. Harris 8 for 34 and a touchdown. Diablo McGee 4 catches, 52 yards for Alcorn. McMahon 5 for 51 for the Hornets. Horn 2 for 50 and a touchdown. Edwards led Alcorn with 10 tackles. He also had 3 tackles for loss. Malachi Bailey had 2 tackles for loss. Their sack, they had 1 sack, and that was by Ross. Alabama State was led by Rico Dozier with 19 tackles. Really solid game for him. 2 tackles for loss and 2 sacks to lead the defense. So I think that's SWAC player of the week on defense right there. And their interceptions went to Lewis and Burgess. Like I said, this was a game that I think both teams needed, and Alcorn came up basically 4 yards short of getting a very key win that they needed, but they kind of find themselves still chasing a little bit. Taking a look at the Week 11 schedule, we're gonna run through it really quickly. Texas Southern is at Alcorn. All these games are on Saturday, November 9th. Texas Southern is at Alcorn. That's a 2 p.m. kick. Bama State is at Gremlin. That's also a 2 p.m. kick. Alabama A&M is at Pine Bluff. That's a 2 o'clock kick. Bethune-Cookman is at Southern, also at 2 o'clock. Florida A&M is at Prairie View. That's 2 o'clock. And Valley is at Jackson State. That's a 2 o'clock kick. I think that game is on HBCU Go, if I'm not mistaken. Taking a quick look at the standings, Jackson State continues to lead the East at 5-0. They are 7-2 overall. They won 5 games in a row. Bama State 4-1, 5-3 overall. They won 3 in a row. They have a big game in 2 weeks against Jackson State if they can get past Gremlin this week. FAMU 3-1, 5-3 overall. They won 2 in a row. They're still in the hunt. Gonna need some help, but they're still in it. Bethune-Cookman is 2-3, 2-7 overall. They won 1. Alabama A&M is 1-3, 3-5 overall. They've lost 2 in a row. And Valley 0-5, 0-9 overall. They've lost 9 straight games. Southern sits atop the West right now at 4-1, 5-4 overall. They won one. They are actually in pretty good shape. They've already beaten Alcorn and Prairie View and Texas Southern. So basically the three teams that are directly behind them, they've already beaten. So they will have to basically they will be okay if they tied with any of those guys. They like I said they are 4-1, 5-4 overall. They won one Alcorn 3-2, 4-5 overall. They lost two. Prairie View 2-3, 4-5 overall. They won their last two games. And Texas Southern is 2-3, 3-5 overall. They've lost one. And Pine Bluff also 2-3, 3-6 overall. They've lost one. Gremlin 1-4, 4-5 overall, and they've lost two in a row. So right now, Southern and Jackson sit atop their divisions. Alcorn still has a chance. They're gonna need some help, but they still have a chance. Prairie View and Texas Southern and Pine Bluff to an extent because they still have to play Southern. In a couple of weeks, they still have an outside chance. Um, in the East, Bama State and FAMU still are chasing Jackson State, but that Bama State Jackson State game in a couple of weeks is going to loom large on the race. And that's going to do it for today's show, man. I thank y'all for tuning in. We will catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.